Hi, this is Tom Sedlak, General Manager at 33rd Company Property Management. Thanks so much for watching this video podcast. Today's topic is going to be homeowner associations and fair housing and discrimination issues and risks. You know, homeowner associations are a little different than landlords, but nonetheless are subject to the same laws and, in fact, the same risks that most landlords take when they're screening tenants. Homeowner associations, in fact, have the additional burden of having documentation and the documented disparate impact potential claim against them for having either unfair or unjust association rules and regs and bylaws, but also for not enforcing them consistently. And where homeowner associations get into trouble is, number one, a lot of the board members are volunteers. And when a volunteer sits on a board and they craft new language in their rules and regs, whether it's for pet sizes, restrictions, numbers, whether it's for the allowance of rentals, or whether it's for simple things like children, for instance, are not allowed to play outside of building number 6. Anytime that you specify a child or specify a unique circumstance, make sure that it's in compliance with fair housing laws. The last, in fact, would be a violation of the familial status HUD rules, and that would land an HOA in trouble. Additionally, you have to be sensitive to making reasonable accommodations for the homeowners that are within the association. All too often, boards make the mistake of denying or not allowing reasonable accommodations for people that are handicapped. And this would include handicap parking. This would include, for instance, homeowner that's asking to expand the width of a driveway to accommodate a wheelchair, and that is disallowed because it doesn't meet the letter of the law of the board rules and regulations. That would be considered a potential claim against the homeowner association for disparate impact or for violating the disability and reasonable accommodation laws that HUD has established. So be very careful. It's always recommended that any modifications that you make to your rules and regs, even simple benign ones like a child playing outside of building 2, you really need to run these through your attorney that's representing your association to make sure that they do meet the not only the letter of the law but the spirit of the law with HUD, because even just the administria of having to go through a violation, a claim, and litigation can ruin the finances of an HOA very quickly. Service animals is another area that frequently get homeowner associations into trouble. And by that I mean a service animal is an ADA allowed accommodation that is a requirement. Now certainly the HOA can request and seek documentation supporting that the animal is in fact a certified service animal. Those forms are available on the HUD website, and the veterinarian can also provide documentation as well as the physician of the owner that has allowed a service animal. All of those requirements can be met and those documents can be provided. However, once they are provided, it is to the HOA's requirement legally to accommodate that service animal. And any harassment that's done by neighbors could be considered a discriminatory act, even if the HOA board itself doesn't do anything other than simply allow the animal but does not address the harassment. So those sorts of things boards need to be sensitive of. It's very important that HOA boards look at their rules and enforce them consistently. Disparate impact is probably one of the largest issues now facing not only landlords but also boards of directors for homeowner associations, is that if you don't fairly, evenly, and consistently apply the regulations, or you make an exception, you're opening the door to litigation for disparate impact. And that can include tenant screening, because many HOAs now with their rental requirements are required to either allow the HOA to screen or they have to provide the screening criteria to the HOA. And essentially, when an HOA requests that information or copies of the lease or whatever, it opens the door quite broadly, as a matter of fact, for the HOA to be included in a discrimination lawsuit, especially one considering the impacts of disparate impact for allowing one tenant versus another. And HUD is very actively and aggressively pursuing those alternatives. And it even boils down to criminal acts, because the most recent activity from HUD indicated that because the Justice Department has been labeled as being discriminatory in its enforcement and for criminal charges, criminal convictions that disparately impact racial minorities, that in fact if some of those same criminal guidelines are used consistently, they could also be considered discriminatory. So the requirements that you set in your rules and regs for reviewing a document, for instance, a screening criteria or an actual application and the screening results, could again land the HOA board in deep water if they don't have documentation supporting a very consistent application of the rules that are enforced. So I hope this information has been helpful for you. It's a very thorny patch to walk into as a volunteer board member. It's important that you're insured. It's important that you have D&O, director and officer liability insurance included in your master policy. Make sure that that includes discriminatory acts. Make sure that you have your back covered because you never know, when or if an issue or a claim will arise, and you have to be ready, and you have to have good documentation, and you have to be able to demonstrate that you are consistently adhering to the letter of the law. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you would like to inquire about HOA management services, feel free to give 33rd Company a ring. We'll be happy to help you. Thank you so much for listening.